Topo Athletic is committed to lifelong health and better movement. Topo builds running shoes for those who get out there every day, regardless of weather, speed, energy, or mood. Their distinctive fit and feel combines instinctive human movement with modern performance and lightweight comfort to help you keep going, keep trying, and keep moving. Discover the Topo difference and step into a run experience unlike any other.
Here we go.
Hey everybody, Jason Bahamundi and Om Gandhi here from Run, Try, Bike. We have a very special guest who'll be joining us today, Theresa Roden, who is the founder and chief visionary of iTry, which is a nonprofit organization based out of Long Island, New York, pretty close to my hometown and so close to my heart, and the organization is basically empowering girls and transforming lives through the sport of triathlon. We had a cover story of the organization for our magazine about a year ago, and I have posted that link into our Facebook and YouTube channels if you're joining us there. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Theresa forward to come and chat with us a little bit today, especially in the middle of Women's History Month. So perfect timing. Hey, Theresa, how are you?
Hey, Jason, I'm good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm on the West Coast along with Om, so we know it's a little late on the East Coast in New York. So we appreciate you setting aside some time for us.
Oh, my pleasure. Luckily, it's a little bit lighter longer here finally, so not so bad.
Yeah, I'm having troubles adjusting to the springing of forward of time these days. Like I wake up and it's a light out, but now the light, because we're on the West Coast, by the time the sun sets, it's almost 8 p.m. here, it feels like. And so it's really late.
Yeah, I hear you.
So first question I want to ask you and really give you the floor to talk about your thoughts when you decided that iTry was something that you wanted to start. Maybe that wasn't the name back in 2010. What was the catalyst for you to say, you know what, this is something I'm going to do?
Yeah. And it was the name. It's always been, it was kind of that time where the iPhone had just come out and everything was this, the iPod, the iPhone. So we were iTry, the lowercase, the whole thing. So it's really a throwback. But really the idea comes out of my own experience. So I was never an athlete growing up at all. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s and I was on the beach in Block Island, Rhode Island, and I saw these crazy lunatics running down the beach, and they had numbers written on their arm in Sharpie, and everybody was cheering, and they were jumping over sandcastles. And I stood up and I got so into it, and I'm cheering along, having no idea. And I looked at my friend, I said, "What are they doing?" And he goes, "Oh, it's the Block Island Triathlon." He goes on to explain what it is. You swim here in the ocean, then you ride around the island, and then this is the run and the finish. And I just, something came over me and said, you know what, next year I want to be one of these lunatics. So I came home. I was in a book group with other kind of moms. My daughter at the time was like 5 years old. And I told my friends in the book group, this is crazy, but next year I'm going to do the Block Island Triathlon. And a bunch of them said, why don't we all train together and do that? None of us had ever done something like that. Some of them had done like marathons and spin classes, but this was all new for all of us, and literally just kind of jumped into the deep end of the pool at the Y and took one lap of that pool and was like, oh my God, how are we ever going to do this kind of thing? But what happened to me personally during that time was just the act of setting a goal and knowing that, I was so determined to reach that finish line really had such a huge impact. And I found myself transforming not only my body, but my mind and my spirit and just the way I looked at things. And this is true for a lot of women, probably some men as well. But, my mindset was very negative, right? And my self-talk was just so abusive that every time I had ever thought about doing a sport or it was, I can't, I'm not good enough. I'm too fat. I'm too slow. I'll make a fool out of myself. And when I set this goal, I quickly realized I could not keep talking to myself that way and ever have a shot at doing it. So I really had to change everything. And, it became everything I ate. What it's going to either get me closer or further from that goal. So everything I ate, everything I watched on TV, the people I surrounded myself, everything, right? So fast forward, race day came, and it was incredible. Like just all of the things that I had been visualizing and talking to myself about all came through, and it was magic, right? But when I got back after that year, all I could talk to anybody about, right? We all know what happens, right? Oh my God, it was incredible. Look at me. If I can do this, you can do this. We all have to do this. And I became the Pied Piper of triathlon out here. And by the next year, not only did we all go back and do the Block Island Triathlon and bring like 20 other people with us, but there's a whole bunch of races on the east end of Long Island, and we were doing all of those and all of that. So I went on to do probably 13, 14 races. And my daughter, who was 6 or 7 at the time, would come to all of my races. And, you know, I knew she was a kid like me. She was not a bat and ball sport kid, and she wasn't gonna, go on to get a college scholarship in soccer or anything like that, lacrosse. But she was a fish, and she loved to ride her bike. And I just, as she was about to go into middle school, I just reflected on what a hard and tough time that was for me personally. And pretty much, I mean, we all agree that is a really hard time of life. And I thought to myself, if I could have learned all of this at her age instead of waiting until I was in my 30s, what a different experience I would have had. And so that's where the idea came to me on a run, kind of fully formed. What if we took a group of girls in just coming into middle school and gave them a really big goal, like doing a triathlon, and gave them all of the tools, the training, the equipment, the love, the support, the camaraderie to achieve that goal? What would happen? And so I literally marched myself into her school, pitched the idea, and here we are, 15 years later. We've had 1,000+ girls do the program, and it's just kind of steamrolled into this, beyond my wildest dreams kind of situation.
So let me ask you this. I'm just really curious, and this might have like a really broad answer or set of answers to it, but I like what you said about, like, if I had known these things when I was in middle school. That is a really tough age because you're going through so many changes, especially like hormonal changes, like personality changes, really trying to figure out who you are. So
yeah. And relationships, right? How you deal in relationship to one another. Yeah.
In the years that you've been doing this, and the girls that you work with, what are some of the things that you've seen translate over from the sport of triathlon to teaching them some of the intangible skills that you yourself wish that you had at that age?
Yeah. So all of the tricks and the tools that I used to get to that finish line, right? So I talked about how my inner voice was such a critic. So I replaced all those negative thoughts with positive affirmations. I used visualization to visualize the every step of the race. I surrounded myself with people who were supportive of my goals and my dreams and could coach me along the way. All of those things. I learned about nutrition. I learned about pacing and so, so many things. All of those translate into what the program is today for the girls. And triathlon itself, I think, is such a great metaphor for life or for any challenge, right? So what, everybody thinks, okay, you swim, you bike, you run, but what's in between those things? Transition, right? Swimming. I think swimming is, when you talk to somebody who's never done a triathlon, how many of them say to you, oh, I could do the bike and the run, but I could never do the swim, right? And every time I look at them and I said, yes, you can. Absolutely. Because you know what? Once you get the mechanics down, swimming is about breath. It's all about breathing. Right. And if that's not a perfect analogy to life, right? It's Dory said it the best, just keep swimming, right? Yeah. You just got to keep going and just inhale, exhale, and all of that. So many of what's intrinsic to triathlon really translates to these things that they can take with them far beyond any race. And it's mostly those internal tools that you have to have if you're going to set and achieve any goal. You have to believe in yourself. You have to love yourself enough to put all of that time and effort in. You have to trust those around you. You have to trust yourself. And, you know, as we all know, there is nothing what really, I think is one of the big keys why we're so successful is that intrinsically, especially with an open water swim and an open road bike, there's some real fear that comes along with even thinking about doing that. And so we take 11 and 12-year-old girls, many of them who have never swam, more and more who come to us never knowing how to ride a bike, have never successfully ridden a bike. And within 6 months, they're in open water, they're out on the road with trucks going by them. And that race morning, they have practiced so hard, not physically, but also using visualization, also that self-talk, all of those things come together. And there's not one of them who doesn't show up race morning absolutely terrified. And rightfully so. And we all know, right? I've asked Ironman triathletes, has there ever been a swim where you have not been absolutely nobody, everybody, absolutely, right? So they each have to face that moment that we all face and where they go, I can't do this. I can't do this. And then they think, well, I've just put in 6 months and my whole family's here and I practiced this. I can do it. Right. And so they do it and they take off, they come out of that swim and their life is changed in that moment. They faced real fear and they did it anyway. Right. Then they have to get on the bike. Same thing. It's terrifying. They come back and man, those girls who never ran a day of practice, all of a sudden they are running like mad to the finish line. And just the way they view themselves after that has forever been changed. The way their family views them, because even though the families know what they're, kind of know what they're doing until they see it and they're like, I can't believe that's my daughter out there in that, what? She just did what? They can't really, it's forever changed and they change in their school communities. They just, it's just an amazing what happens. We have a saying, I know other people use it too, but the finish line is just the beginning because once they've crossed that finish line, there is that feeling of if I can do that, there is nothing I can't accomplish.
There are so many questions I can ask you off of that. But one of our favorite members of our community, Nancy, hi, Nancy, has commented a couple of times and mentioned the what if part and about who you become. And so I want to ask you about the what if part, because you're dealing with young girls who are going to question, and you had this grand vision, but I'm guessing you're not the only person who's working in the organization to help these women transition through this process and answer the question of what if I can't swim? What if I can't bike? What if I can't run? So how many people are in the organization that are working as either coaches or dietitian, nutritionists, volunteers? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we do have an incredible team. We have 5 full-time program leaders. We have a program director and 4 program leaders. They're pretty much who I was that first year, right? I consider it the mom of the group. So we're in 13 different schools on the eastern end of Long Island right now. We work in partnership with the schools. So the schools help us to recruit the kids. And once that happens, then we push in after school once a week where we do an hour of what we call our empowerment sessions. And that's that whole social and emotional learning and the mental health support. But that's where the visualization, the self-love, the breathing techniques, the affirmations, that happens. Following that, there's an hour of fitness. And then each group gets one session where the families come together and do nutrition. So we have one full-time nutritionist that does that. Then on Saturdays, we break into 2 groups over time, and that's where they do their triathlon training. So they'll do running and swimming until the weather gets better, and then they transition to biking, and then we move to the race course. So besides our core program leader team, we've got about 8 to 10 swim coaches. Some of them transition and become bike coaches when we have that. But what's been really fantastic is that many of the girls who have done the program, I mean, this is our 15th year. So what happens is after they do it their first year in 6th grade, they're invited to come back and do it again in 7th and 8th grade with the expectation that now you're a mentor to the younger girls. If they stay with us, and many of them do, in high school, they can come back and now be a coach. You serve as an alumni coach for 1 year. The second year, once they're 16, we'll pay for them to get WSI, water safety instruction training. They can they volunteer for a year as a swim coach. After that, we pay them $30 an hour, just like our coaches. And they, at least out here, once you are a swim teacher, you can write your own way, because every house with a pool needs somebody to teach their kids. And so they're very active with us, but it gives them, they're working at clubs and all this stuff afterwards. So we do mentor and employ our own girls in our program. And we do use volunteers, but I've always said, I love volunteers, but it's easy for a volunteer to say, oh, I can't show up today. And when I have 200 girls on bicycles, I need to know that the people that are there are going to show up and be trained professionals. One thing we did coming out of COVID was we brought in this great organization that I tell everybody about. It's called the Center for Healing and Justice Through Sport, chjs.org, because during the pandemic, we stayed and we were virtual, but we were really seeing in real time the deep dive into depression and anxiety that our kids were suffering from. And knowing going back to school in person, we were going to face a lot of challenges. So we brought them in to do training with everybody in our organization on trauma-informed care and coaching. And that has been game-changing for us, because what we learned was many of the things we had always done just instinctively that always worked for us. Now we had the brain science behind it, and we knew why it was working. And then we could explain it to the kids and explain it to their families. And it's just been phenomenal.
So you're celebrating your 15th year. In 2010, you had this idea. What was it like to get to the 15th year in terms of your expectations of year one? And what do you think is going to happen in year 30 in comparison to where you're at right now?
Oh, wow. Yeah. The first year was just so magical. There's no other way. I never set out for this to become, a big nonprofit. I just knew I had this thing inside of me that wanted to give this a try and see what would happen. And so there were so many moments where, we didn't have money. We didn't have, nobody asked, do you have insurance? The Y grant, kind of gave us their insurance and all of this. Like things just kind of worked miraculously, to the point where the day we had 10 kids doing it that first year, and we didn't have bicycles. And I remember I was blogging. That's how old it was. It was a blog. And I would put Facebook posts, and I said, okay, we're getting ready to bike. Does anybody have bikes? And people were emailing me and Facebooking me. And I was driving around picking up all of these bikes, and I get them all to the school, and helmets and everything else. And Sharon McCobb, who is to this day still our athletic director, shows up. She was going to do the bike workshop, and she goes, do we have enough bikes? And I go, I don't even know. I've just literally been running. And as they came out, we had exactly the right number of bikes, exactly the right number of helmets. And it was truly loaves and fishes. I knew, okay, we're going to be okay. And there were just so many moments like that just kept saying, just keep going, just keep going. And so after that first year, the girls themselves asked, can we get back together? So the race was in July. We stopped seeing one another. And then in September, they were all like, let's get together. So we got together, and I asked them, well, what do you think we should do? And to a girl, they said, this can't stop. We need to do this again. And we need to get more girls involved. I want to find the girl like me who couldn't ride a bike so I can tell her she can. I want to find the girl who said she hates to run, so it was them. And I said, well, what does this look like in the future? And they said, we want this to become something where any girl anywhere who can benefit from this will have that opportunity. And so that's been the driving force, throughout the years. So 30 years from now, that's my dream, that anywhere in the world where girls can benefit, there's a way for them to experience what the girls of iTry get to experience.
Well, it looks like you're, excuse me, well on your way. I do recall, I don't know if it's still on your website today, there was a story of a young girl who went through the program to become a firefighter and wound up becoming a firefighter as she got older. And I'm not sure why, but I was so enamored with this idea of going through this process of getting empowered and transforming her life to the point where she was like, I've done the triathlon thing. I can be a firefighter too, which is obviously male dominated.
Yeah.
When you see the young girls becoming young women and moving on, like how much pride does that give you in terms of I was a part of that?
Yeah, I mean, I like to take all the credit, but it's really them. They're just it attracts just incredible souls to this program, and I do think this has a lot to do with it. What's great is that for the most part, most of them only do it in middle school and go on to high school, and sometimes we hear the stories, sometimes we don't, but I'm always amazed how many of them write their college essay on, because it's usually what was a moment that defined you in your right. And so that's the guidance counselors send them to me all the time. They're like, Theresa, you got to read this one. You got to, and it's all about that. That was the moment. Like, I remember waking up early that morning and being so scared and all of that. But, they just go on to just do these amazing things. And I am very proud of them.
Sorry, I still get it choked up in thinking about that story because it's male dominated field and becoming a firefighter and in New York City nonetheless, or New York for that matter.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing to me that, and to know that, right, like you had a hand in that, it blows my mind.
Well, what's also interesting when you talk about male dominated fields, we know historically STEM fields, right, have been very male dominated. And so we knew going in that for girls in sports usually drops off after middle school. And so there's less girls. Same with math and science. So their trajectory in choosing to go to higher level math and science courses tend to drop off. That's not the case with our kids. So many of them have continued on and are either pre-med or doing tech jobs and very strong, because the difference is it's this confidence, right? The confidence gap. Well, these kids go into high school with the confidence like way up here. It's like, oh, are you kidding me? I just did 3 triathlons and I'm 14 years old. Come on. And so, right. So we actually, it's probably been 10 years now, but or maybe about 10 years, we received an incredible grant from the Heisman Trophy Foundation. Talk about male dominated sport, right? But it was, we used it to develop a STEM curriculum that's integrated into everything we do. So it's called the Science of Triathlon curriculum. And so I always say they don't know they're getting it, but we are kind of embedding science terms and things into what they're doing. And I always say, when you're going uphill on a bike and somebody tells you, yep, you just did an incline plane, you are never going to forget incline plane, right? We have them swim a lap in the pool and then do it with a scarf around their neck so that they experience drag, right? You want to learn buoyancy? When we get in the bay, you're going to feel the difference in buoyancy. So these things, and what we're able to say to an 11-year-old is, when you get to high school and when you take physics, not if you decide to take physics. We say when you take physics, this is all you're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that because I did that in iTry. And that's what we're seeing.
I want to emphasize the importance of that by asking a question that we kind of joked about in the green room. You said you were not a big fan of basketball. Jason and I are big fans of basketball. But I just think this question is more than that, beyond the surface level. March Madness is a term that's been around for a very long time. And it was just a year ago that the NCAA allowed women's basketball to use the term March Madness, a year ago. And we're also talking about getting more women into STEM careers. I, as an ultra runner, we want to get more women into longer distance running. So I want to get your thoughts on that and highlight the importance of that from your perspective as somebody who has worked with over a thousand young girls and is an advocate for young women.
Yeah, well, it's about equality, right? And these generations, they know what's right and what's wrong, and they can see when things aren't equal, and they're the first to, advocate for one another, and beyond just male and female. We're seeing so many of this generation not wanting to conform, right? Who identify as something other than male or female. And we've had to think about how we, as an organization that was designed for girls, how we do that. And what our answer to that is that we're here for any soul who finds us and finds a way, thinks that they have a place with us. And it's just the learning that we've learned has been mostly from the kids. And we create a safe space where kids can, be who they need to be. And whether that's to go on to play, basketball and be involved in March Madness, it should be the same, right? We were talking in the green room about just the difference in equipment and training spaces and things like that, which is ludicrous. And once that was brought out into the public, there was public outcry, right? And so absolutely, it's about equity and equality.
We are a media company, and so a lot of the responsibility, I feel, I don't know, I can't speak for other media companies, falls on our shoulders to highlight the equality, to highlight women in sport, to highlight the non-binary athlete in sport as well. From your perspective, what can media companies like ours do to continue to foster this idea of equality in sport so that everybody does have a chance to compete and have success?
Yeah, tell the stories. That's what you're doing, right? Everyone has a story, and some of these, when someone is open and honest and connects, that can move the needle more than anybody, shaking their fists. Just keep telling the stories.
So when you're looking at, television, listening to radio, whatever it might be, and you're hearing the stories from the young women that you're working with, as well as the coaches and nutritionists that you're working with, and you do see something that happens outside of your organization, how do you bring that into your organization to talk about it so that you're consistently educating them as well?
That's a good question. I think it happens organically. Not every, we're not reactionary, so we're not bringing everything in. We have our curriculum is pretty condensed, so there's always a lot that we have to get through. But that being said, something can take a group totally off track, and in that case, the curriculum's scrapped. And we do a lot of work in circles, right? So we sit in what we call talking circles, and that's where that acceptance and safe space comes in, because sometimes there's things going on in the world, and we have to just let everything else go and let us kind of process that. So it's kind of how we roll.
You guys are a nonprofit, and you're out raising funds, I'm presuming is how you fund the majority, or everything probably.
Everything, yeah.
Where can people go to either volunteer time or to make a donation to the organization? And then I will have a follow-up question to that based on your answer.
Great. Yeah, so everything we do is free of charge for all of our participants and families, but it costs us about $2,500 per girl to get them from day one in February through the race day, which is July 13th. So yes, all donations are accepted. Any foundation, leads or company partnerships are always so appreciated. And our website is the best place to go for that. So that's itrigirls.org. So ITRI, girls with an S.org.
And in the green room, you mentioned that you guys had way more applicants, I guess, than you had expected. What's the number that you're going to be guiding through the triathlon world in 2024?
Yeah, so we had budgeted for 200, and we are right now at 240. So that's 40 more participants than we had expected. And we are at capacity. At that point, we did have to turn a few away, more than I would have liked to. But at some point, it becomes not only can we raise the money and buy the bikes, but is it safe? And so that's where we're cutting it this year. So yeah, there's a lot to think about this year in terms of, equipment, staff, all of the things to make sure, because it always comes down to one girl, right? So it's great. We could have 200 girls, but it's really that one. Each girl is so important. Each soul is so important. And we need to be able to be responsive to the needs of every single one of them.
And you're providing everything: swim caps, goggles, swim gear, suits, bikes, helmets.
Yep. Transportation. Yes. And if they don't have, right, if many of them have, if they don't have, we'll do that. We have a fleet of bicycles that we use, helmets that we use over and over. So but transportation has really become one of the biggest factors, because with parents working 2 or 3 jobs, especially at the end of the season, we used to have so many drop out because they just couldn't get to practice. And so we really had to step up, and that's become our biggest cost is transportation.
All right. So all of you followers and listeners, make sure you go to itrigirls.org, make a donation, get in touch with Theresa, do whatever you can to make sure that these young ladies can enjoy the sport of triathlon, but more importantly, grow and transform their lives down the road. I asked this kind of vaguely earlier, so I want to be more specific, because my mind is always looking to the future and big picture. Like I dream big. So I see iTri Girls and I'm like, they should be in LA and Chicago and Miami and everywhere else. And how do I help make that happen? So expansion plans, you went from 1 school to 13. What can expansion plans look like for you? Is that something that you consider?
Yeah, absolutely. We are, back to that first group of girls that was their dream. It's been my dream and vision. So probably our next step, we have been looking into doing a New York Metro in one of the 5 boroughs program, and it looks like some puzzle pieces are falling into place. Number one is finding a location to have a race, and that in itself is challenging. So one thing is leading me to the next thing and to the next thing, but just as like the loaves and fishes happen the first year, it seems like one person's leading me to the next person, and so I have a feeling come 2025, 2026, you may be hearing more. We'll have another conversation where we're talking about the first expansion outside of the Long Island area.
I'm a Mets fan, and I know the owner of the Mets, the new owner of the Mets, has a lot of money. He can make something happen, especially as he's redesigning all the Willets Point and everything over there.
Well, I would love that connection.
I'll reach out to him on Twitter. He's one of those people on Twitter who's actually like engaged with the audience, from a billionaire's perspective, which is, something that doesn't always happen. So we'll drop the link in there. Who knows? You never know.
I love it. Have him give me a call. We can talk.
You got it. One of the things that we do with every one of our guests, and I didn't want to ask this question out of the gate, so I saved it to the end, is we go through this sort of, we call it rapid fire, but feel free to think about the questions. Is we go through rapid fire questions, but they always involve food. Like they're 100% food. So I never asked you this. You're a native New Yorker, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a native New Yorker, I got to ask you, Om and I disagree on this. Pineapple on pizza, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
Thumbs down.
Yes. See, no real New Yorker worth their weight.
Why did I even have a shred of hope as soon as I heard New Yorker?
Oreos. Do you like the old school Oreo, or are you a double stuff Oreo kind of person?
I'm an old school.
Yes.
Twist and in the teeth. The double stuff are too much, too sweet. That's
right.
Yep.
Peeps. Are Peeps a real candy, or are they just dust covered in glitter?
Yeah, absolutely. Gross. Yeah. Gross. I don't think I've ever eaten a Peep, but marshmallow's not my thing. No, Peeps should be out.
3 for 3. Candy corn. Is candy corn a real candy, or is it just earwax covered in sugar?
It's a definite no.
Yes.
Candy corn. Oh God.
I should probably end this line of questioning now so that I don't get a bad answer. Crunchy or creamy peanut butter? Which are you going with?
Creamy.
Okay. Why?
I don't know. Too much crunch in the crunchy. Stuck in your teeth.
Licorice, red or black?
Red.
Red velvet cake. Is it a real cake, or is it just chocolate cake dressed up to go to the prom?
Oh, interesting. I'm not really a cake fan. I think I like that chocolate cake dressed up to go to a prom. That's a good way to explain it. Yeah.
It's just a ton of red food dye with some white cream cheese frosting on it. Like, it's chocolate cake, people. Is a hot dog a sandwich or a taco?
Wow. Never thought of it that way, but it could be a taco.
Really? You're the first person to say that. I'm blown away.
It's the bun shape.
I got it.
Buns are top.
Yeah, but most people go sandwich because of the bun, right? Because it's got a little extra thickness. I was totally caught off guard. I was reading the next question. I got shocked.
I like thinking of a hot dog as a taco. Okay.
Easter's around the corner. What's the worst Easter candy you can think of, and why is it the Cadbury cream egg?
Oh yeah, it's definitely. But the best is the Reese's egg. Is my favorite, and that because it has enough peanut butter in it and not crunchy.
We did a live Food Fight Friday last weekend, and I asked them to rank the top 5 Easter candies, and their choices were the Cadbury cream egg, the Reese's peanut butter egg, Peeps, the Brock's jelly beans, and the hollow Easter bunny. And obviously,
on top.
Reese's for most of them came out on top. Most of them, one girl, Katie, she was like, never even think about Cadbury cream egg. And I was like, that must make it the worst one. Like, if you're not even thinking about spending money on it, then it's terrible. Yeah. It's awful.
Awful. Look.
And then other people would try to get fancy with their hollow chocolate bunny. They're like, well, if it's Lindt chocolate, I'm like, no, you're going to CVS or Walgreens. You're grabbing that thing off the shelf. You bite into it and it crumbles into 100 pieces and you're so upset and it tastes like crap. Like, it's just terrible chocolate. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Coffee.
Nice. Yes. That's a fantastic choice.
Thank you.
Favorite candy bar?
Reese's.
Straight up Reese's. Not even not the PCs, not the little one?
No.
What about that big one now they have? I think it's called the Big Five. It's like a cake.
Yeah, no. I actually like the bite-sized ones.
Yes. The little ones.
Yep.
All right. Last question.
Okay, I'm ready.
Brownies. Are you the kind of person who would rather have the centerpiece, ooey and gooey, or the edge piece with a little bit of crust on it?
Edge with the crust all the way.
And any edge or the corner edge?
The corner, of course. You get more edge.
Right, just like getting a Sicilian pizza, right? You got to get the corner and Sicilian slice. Do you put
no pineapple?
No pineapple. Gosh, no. No pineapple whatsoever. And here's how Ohm is on mute right now, but he'll unmute himself for this. We have eaten at this place in Hermosa Beach, California, 2 or 3 times. Place is called Paisanos. They're dudes from New York. They have all kinds of pizza in there. And they have pineapple and ham pizza in there, and he's never ordered it once when we go there. So that tells me he doesn't even like pineapple on pizza, really.
Oh, dude, it's the ham I don't like.
Well, if you really like it, tell them to give you a plain slice and throw some pineapple chunks on it. I'm sure they'd do that for you.
I'll ask for a pineapple and ham pizza without ham.
Yeah, there you go.
Put it in a hot dog bun, it can be a taco.
Oh,
Theresa,
man.
thank you so much
for blurring the line.
No, thank you guys. This has been so much fun.
For those of you that are listening, itrigirls.org, itrigirls.org. Make sure you go there, check out the organization, read how Theresa got this thing started, where she's at today with it, and where it's going. And if you can, please make a donation to help change and transform a young girl's life so that she feels empowered to go and race triathlon. Have a great evening. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Bye-bye.